Hello, beautiful people. This is Joanna from Mindful Counseling, also known as JDS Counseling. I am here with you today to talk about fear, anxiety, stress, worry, and being scared. And the only reason why I decided or am deciding to do this recording is because I had actually experienced all of those feelings when I was right in the center of the Hurricane Ida that just happened to pass by through many different states, but I live in New Jersey, so being affected by the hurricane in the state of New Jersey. Now, I know some of you who are listening are not necessarily from New Jersey. My audience seems to be all over the United States as well as outside of the United States. So I know some of you that are listening may have not been affected by the hurricane, however, may have been affected by other horrifying events, traumatic experiences, etc. So what and how was I affected by the hurricane? Now, I also have to say that I did a recording before this, and I was going to share it. And it's almost the same recording, but then I realized someone else had also shared their experience, a colleague of mine, on their experiences through the hurricane and what their family has gone through. And it made me realize that I wanted to re-record this. Reason being is because more and more people were and are affected by the hurricane. A lot of people lost their homes. A lot of people got flooded, lost their houses, lost their cars. Some people lost their loved ones. The hurricane was not just rain, but some places were affected by the tornadoes. Rain. Areas that were flooded, where there was no escape. And this is where I come in. I was at work, and for some reason, my phone decided not to notify me on any of the hurricane updates that were going on. So I didn't receive any. Out of all the days, I always receive every possible notification that can come my way. That day was not the day. The time that I actually received the notification was tornado watch in effect, as well as life-threatening situations. You should not be outside. Now, I got this notification when I was already on the road, driving down a major highway. I got stuck. What I mean by that? It was raining. It was definitely not a usual rain. For some reason, it definitely looked different to me, and it just had a different feeling. So as I was driving, and I finally came to a gridlock where all the cars were stopped in front of me. I'm not necessarily good with numbers when it comes to feet, but it wasn't too far in front of me where I saw the highway was just flooded, completely flooded, and the cars in front of me, there was express lane and a local lane, were stopped. And also on the opposite side of the road, the westbound, I was going eastbound, westbound, the cars were also stopped. Why? Because there was what it looked like a huge just river right in front of us. It was dark, but enough to see what was going on in front of me. And as calm and collected I was, I realized that I was also getting scared. Am I going to make it home? Will I make it home? I have a 7-year-old daughter. I have a husband to come home to. So not only was I scared whether or not I was going to make it home, I was also scared for them because they could not get to me, or my husband at least could not. There was other issues that were going on. Luckily, our house was not flooded, but there was water coming in. So there was other issues going on on the other side of the family, right? So I realized that as calm and collected I may have been, I was scared. I was actually scared whether or not there was going to be a tornado nearby. Luckily, there was not in the area where I was. But water was definitely an issue. So the fear that came my way was, is this water going to reach my car? And what if it does? What do I do? Luckily, I know how to swim. That was my conclusion. And trying to find an escape. So in other words, my survival mode kicked in. I'm going to get out of the car. I'm going to swim. Whether or not I would be able to, I don't know. There were trucks and buses next to me. So why not? Might as well just knock on the door in case I need to go on a higher ground. So I had all of these thoughts running through my mind in the moments of fear and anxiety and being scared. The cars in front of me. We were stuck. Some cars were actually, I don't know how, but they managed to somehow turn around and go the opposite way on the shoulder of the road. In my mind, I kept on thinking whether or not I should do the same. I needed an answer. I called my husband. I said, what should I do? And in that moment, he also did not know. He had mentioned whether or not I feel safe turning around. Well, guess what? There was road closures behind me, and there were accidents behind me. So there was no way of really, at least in my mind, escaping. It was either the flood in front of me or being stuck with whatever was going on behind me. At least that's what it showed up on my phone, on my maps. That's exactly what I was using, trying to figure out whether or not there was an easier way of getting home, but there was not. So I was stuck. I was in the center of this entire Hurricane Ida that was going on. And I had people reach out to me, being concerned, being worried. And for some reason, that worry did not hit me yet, or at least that concern. And the others were concerned for me until moments later. So I was stuck there for a few hours, not knowing what to do, trying to shift my anxiety into other things, such as being on my phone, looking through social media, which I'm not quite sure if that was beneficial for me or not. It did give me the updates with what was going on and being able to communicate with others. But at the same time, it was a lot of stuff going on. So I was watching in front of me what was going on. Some people were turning around that were able to, but once again, they were not able to go anywhere. Maybe some were able to escape, but given with what I saw, I find that quite hard to think. So the cars in front of me, where the flooding was going on, I realized that I saw many cars submerged underwater, broken down. And with the little light that I was receiving, more so from the headlights of the cars, was that there were people escaping out of those cars, walking in those waters, trying to get to drier land, safer place. I'm realizing as I say this that how scary that must have been for them. How scared I was whether or not that water was going to reach my car. So here I am sharing this because I also think I need to share it not just for myself, but for many other people who may have experienced difficult situations. Being scared and not knowing what to do, or not necessarily having someone there to help you because there was no way of getting to you. Well, luckily, I was able to get off the highway. The floodwaters receded many, many hours later into the night. But there were broken cars on the road, so now trying to find an escape through the cars that were in front of us on a highway in front of me. And it almost looked like a puzzle that you needed to figure out, and which way do you go in order to go around the cars. It was easier for me, but it was a lot more difficult for the trucks and the buses. Once I was able to get off my exit to get home, I realized that, once again, I did not have a way home because every possible road that is connected to my house was flooded. I live in a city, so technically every road was a river, some were deeper than the others. So once again, I did not have a way of getting home, and my husband did not have a way of getting to me. Even though his car was a little bit higher than mine, he still was not able to get to me. So I spent the night in a car, in a parking lot, on a drier side, with many other people who were probably in the same situation trying to get home or maybe go to different locations. So my whole night was spent in a car, probably I barely slept, so I could say that my way of dealing with it was maybe every 45 minutes, try to see if the water receded and I can go back home. The rain finally stopped around 2 o'clock in the morning, give or take. And at that point I figured maybe the waters did recede, but they didn't. They didn't go anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually got higher because of the flooding that was going on. So I could not get home. Luckily, I was not stuck on a highway, but I was still stuck somewhere. At that point, I did feel somewhat comfortable versus when I was on a highway. I don't know the difference, but the only conclusion that I have is where I was when I was in a parking lot was I knew that there is ways to, whether it's escape floodwaters or at least to stay dry. On a highway, I didn't. There was no way of going forward or back because you were completely backed, closed off by the other cars. So maybe that's the reason. I was able to finally get home the next day at 11:30 in the morning. Once again, give or take. This recording is done post Hurricane Ida. Once I was able to reflect on the things that were going on, and that as much as I was trying to minimize my experience, that it was not a big one, I realized that it was a pretty horrific experience. In my mind, I concluded saying by that many people had it worse, and they did. Like I said, people lost homes, which I can only imagine. I don't know necessarily what they're feeling, but I can only imagine what I would feel if it were me losing my home. So once again, I was trying to minimize my own experiences by saying other people had it worse or that I'm okay. Granted, I was, is through conversations with many other individuals, through exploring the feelings, that my experience was not small. It was horrific. It was scary. I was scared. I was scared whether or not a tornado was going to hit, because that's exactly the notification I was receiving on my phone, because that's when it decided to give me the notification. I was scared whether or not I was actually going to die. Why? Because it said, at least one of those notifications I received on my phone, life-threatening situations, you should be at home. Yeah, how was I supposed to be home if I was stuck? So I don't know if I could necessarily speak for others, but I feel like I maybe minimized this hurricane or didn't think it was going to be a big deal, but it was. It affected a lot of people. It affected me. Luckily, nobody was hurt through my family. Nobody was, losses were there in sense of homes and flooding at the house. Maybe not my own, but my family members were affected by this. So here I am talking about fear, loss, being scared, anxiety and worry, and that it's okay to acknowledge it. We may come off as strong and calm and collected, which is great. Sometimes we could say it's our experiences that shape us and make us this way. But it's extremely important for our own mental health, physical health, emotional, that we acknowledge some of these things, because We could say they exist and the other people may have had it bad, but not to minimize our own. To acknowledge our feelings, to have empathy for ourselves. We're human beings, just like everybody else. So here we go, Hurricane Ida. I was definitely affected by you, and I know many people were. So for all of you that are listening to this, I hope that you were able to find this helpful, healing, acknowledging in many ways. And especially for those of you who were affected by the hurricane, I can understand what you must have gone through or felt in some ways, minimal ways. I could relate in the ways I can relate. And for those of you who were not affected by the Hurricane Ida, I'm sure that you were affected in other areas of your life, other maybe uncomfortable situations, unpleasant situations, traumatic experiences. And I hope that you can acknowledge that pain is normal. It does exist, as uncomfortable as it is. It's okay to acknowledge it. Being scared is also uncomfortable, but it's okay to acknowledge it. Do not minimize your feelings. Do not dismiss them. They exist. So we can acknowledge, feel, share if we want, and move forward. So this is my experience of the Hurricane Ida. I hope you're all well, safe. Until next time.